3 months after Ethan and I got back together, his so-called girl best friend finally made it into his bed. When I opened the door to the hotel suite the next morning, Vanessa was wearing Ethan's white dress shirt and sitting sideways across his lap. The buttons were done up wrong, one shoulder was bare, and a scatter of red marks showed beneath her collarbone. Around her neck was a sapphire necklace. The necklace Ethan had promised to give me for my birthday. Vanessa did not climb off him when she saw me. Instead, she slipped an arm around his neck and smiled. "Claire, don't make that face again. You look like you want to murder someone." I wasn't making any face at all. That seemed to disappoint her. She patted Ethan's cheek as if he were an oversized dog that had misbehaved. "We all drank too much last night. We accidentally ended up in the same bed. That's all." She turned to him. "It doesn't mean anything, right, idiot?" Ethan looked terrible. His hair was disordered, his shirt was open at the throat, and a smear of lipstick still stained the collar. The moment he saw me, he stood so fast Vanessa nearly slid to the floor. "Claire, let me explain." I glanced at the dress on the carpet, the empty champagne bottles, and the rumpled sheets visible through the bedroom door. "There's nothing to explain." The suite went silent. Ethan stared at me. Vanessa stared at me. They were both waiting for me to explode. 3 years earlier, I would have overturned the table, dragged Vanessa off his lap, and demanded that Ethan choose between us. I would have screamed until my throat hurt and begged him to admit that what he kept calling friendship had never been innocent. But that Claire had been dead for a long time. I walked into the suite, picked up Ethan's phone from the coffee table, and opened the page I had sent him several days before. It showed an antique sapphire necklace from a private collector in Paris. $1.8 million. I handed him the phone. "Today is my birthday," I said. "I want this one." Vanessa blinked, then burst out laughing. "You walk in on your boyfriend after he spent the night with another woman, and your first thought is jewelry?" I looked at her. "Boyfriend." Her smile froze for half a second. Ethan took the phone but did not immediately place the order. He searched my eyes as if he could find anger hidden somewhere behind them. "You're really not upset?" "It was an accident," I said calmly. "You were drunk." He kept staring. I stepped closer and straightened his crooked collar. "Besides, you've always told me Vanessa is family." Vanessa's smile returned. "Family isn't quite right." She settled back onto his thigh. "We're more like brothers. I'm his girl, bro. I'm not like those women who spend all day trying to seduce somebody else's man." I nodded. "I understand now." Ethan's jaw tightened. He did not look relieved by my maturity. If anything, he looked more uneasy than he had when I entered. 10 minutes later, he bought the necklace. The payment confirmation was automatically copied to my attorney, Rachel Kim. Ethan was listed as the purchaser. I was listed as the recipient. Ownership was registered to the Bennett Family Trust. From that moment on, no matter whose neck the necklace eventually rested against, it belonged to me. It was the first thing Ethan returned to me after I came back. The first installment on a debt he did not yet understand he owed. Neither Ethan nor Vanessa knew that I had not returned because I still loved him. I had returned to take back everything that was mine. I met Ethan Mercer when I was 23. He was the only son of Richard Mercer, founder of Mercer Capital. He was wealthy, handsome, clever, and carried a last name that opened almost every door in Boston finance. At the time, he had just graduated from business school and was determined to build a technology company without relying on his father. He had ambition. He did not have a product. I did. My mother had been a software engineer. Before she died, she developed the foundation of a data analysis system capable of detecting disruptions across global supply chains. During graduate school, I finished the algorithms she had left behind and turned them into a platform that businesses could actually use. The technology belonged to me. The company's initial $8 million in startup capital also came from the trust my mother left me. All Ethan brought was the Mercer name. At first, I believed that was enough. I handled product, engineering, and clients. Ethan handled financing, publicity, and business relationships. When we incorporated, Richard suggested calling the company Mercer Meridian Technologies. "Investors will trust a Mercer," he told us. They won't trust an unknown 23-year-old engineer. Ethan squeezed my hand under the conference table. A name is just a name, he whispered. Half of this company will always be yours. I believed him. For the company's first 3 years, I barely paid myself. I poured every dollar I could access into research and development. I slept 4 hours a night, rewrote code until sunrise, and followed Ethan into meetings where men twice my age spoke to him while asking me to bring coffee. I negotiated our first international contract after flying between Boston and Europe for 3 straight months. I built the materials for our first financing round. I personally fixed every serious technical failure reported by our early clients. Ethan stood on stage at launch events and told reporters how he had turned an idea into a company worth hundreds of millions of dollars. I sat backstage correcting the technical numbers in his speech. I never minded. I loved him then. I thought we were building one future together. Then Vanessa came back to Boston. She and Ethan had grown up together. Their parents were close. They attended the same private school and spent every summer in the same vacation houses. Vanessa rarely called him Ethan. She called him idiot, bastard, moron, and occasionally princess when she wanted to irritate him. She stole food from his plate, drank from his glass, let herself into his apartment without knocking, and treated his bed as an extension of her own whenever she had too much to drink. The first time I said it made me uncomfortable, Ethan laughed and touched the top of my head. She's just Vanessa. After that, the sentence became an answer to everything. Vanessa used his fork. She's just Vanessa. Vanessa changed clothes in front of him. She's just Vanessa. Vanessa called him at 2 in the morning and demanded that he drive across the city to pick her up. She's just Vanessa. Vanessa crawled into his bed after drinking and said the guest room was too cold. She's just Vanessa. On Ethan's birthday, they lost a round of truth or dare and kissed in front of everyone. The kiss lasted 6 seconds. I counted. I slapped Vanessa. Ethan looked at me with disgust for the first time in our relationship. He said I was insane. His friends said my need for control was frightening. Vanessa held one hand to her cheek and cried as she apologized to Ethan. She said she never wanted to damage our relationship and promised never to contact him again. 3 days later, she developed a high fever alone in her apartment and stopped answering every call. Ethan broke down her door and found her unconscious. At the hospital, her temperature was over 104 degrees. When she woke, she looked weakly at Ethan and whispered, "Why did you come?" When Claire finds out, she'll only say I'm pretending again. That night, Ethan ended our relationship. He said he could no longer tolerate my jealousy or instability. My access to the company's systems was revoked. The lease on our apartment was terminated. The board received a notice claiming that I had voluntarily withdrawn for personal reasons. By then, nearly all of the money my mother had left me had gone into Mercer Meridian. I had no complete salary records. I had signed a sweeping confidentiality agreement. The company publicly claimed that its core platform had been developed by a technical team under Ethan's leadership. Other firms in the industry were afraid of offending the Mercer family, and no one wanted to hire me. 2 months later, I moved out of our riverfront apartment and into a single room above a laundromat. At 4 in the morning, I needed dough in a bakery. During the day, I packed medical supplies in a warehouse. By the time I returned to my room at night, my fingers were so swollen I could barely hold a glass of water. One winter afternoon, Ethan and Vanessa came into the bakery. He wore a cashmere coat that cost enough to cover 6 months of my rent. Vanessa looked around the cramped shop, then let her gaze settle on the flour across my apron. "So this is where you work now." Ethan did not correct her. He stood on the other side of the counter as if he were offering me charity. "When you learn to control your emotions and accept that Vanessa is part of my life, we can talk," he said. "Maybe I'll consider starting over." Vanessa lowered her face to sip her coffee, but I saw the smile at the corner of her mouth. That was the moment I stopped loving him. Not when he kissed Vanessa. Not when he forced me out of the company and our home. Not even when I worked 14 hours a day and still could not pay the next month's rent. My love died that afternoon, When Ethan stood in front of me enjoying everything I had created and spoke of taking me back as if it were a reward I might earn. A year later, Rachel Kim found me. Rachel and I had known each other in graduate school. After graduation, she became a mergers and acquisitions attorney. That year, the Bennett Family Trust was changing trustees. Rachel had been retained to help the incoming trustee inventory the intellectual property and investment records my mother had left behind. Inside an archive box that had not been opened in years, she found my name. After the bakery closed one night, she arrived with the original documents and a trust attorney. "Claire," she said, spreading the papers across a small table, "you never transferred the core technology to Mercer Meridian." I stared at her. "I signed an agreement." "You signed an exclusive license, not a permanent assignment." She pushed the original across the table. "The intellectual property has remained in the Bennett Family Trust this entire time. Mercer Meridian has a limited right to use it. If you were removed without reasonable compensation and the company concealed the true contribution of its founder, the license can be reviewed for breach." I read the agreement 3 times. Then Rachel placed another document in front of me. "There's more." My original $8 million contribution had been recorded as convertible founder financing. In Mercer Meridian's IPO data room, a scanned copy was marked as settled through a founder restructuring. But the original contained no waiver signed by me and no evidence that the financing had ever been converted into equity. "What does that mean?" I asked. "It means this wasn't a tiny oversight everyone forgot. Someone treated it as resolved when it never was. You may still be entitled to a substantial portion of the founder equity." Mercer Meridian was preparing to go public. Its valuation had already passed $1 billion. The underwriters had raised questions about ownership of the core technology and the treatment of the early financing. A formal objection from me would stop the IPO. But Ethan had access to the best attorneys the Mercer family could buy. A direct lawsuit could still take years. I did not have enough money to fight indefinitely, and I did not want to spend the rest of my life in court. Rachel studied me across the table. "There may be another way." She showed me messages Ethan had sent to mutual friends. "Has Claire ever asked about me? Is she seeing anyone? Is she still angry about Vanessa? Why did she stop talking to everyone?" There were more than I expected. "He hasn't let you go," Rachel said. "If you go back, he may bring you into the company again. And if guilt and trust make him willing to sign documents he would otherwise fight, we can resolve this without spending years in litigation." She did not suggest that I steal files or forge promises. She prepared a formal intellectual property objection, a founder claim notice, and a settlement framework that would have to be reviewed by independent attorneys for both sides. Whether Ethan signed anything would be his decision. I looked down at the original license. For 3 years, Ethan had stood in the world I created and accepted the applause, wealth, and admiration as his own. He had called my pain jealousy, my anger madness, and my resistance abuse. Then he had demanded that I become a better-behaved woman before I could deserve him again. I raised my eyes to Rachel. "Prepare the documents." 2 months later, Ethan and I got back together. I apologized to him. I told him I had been too sensitive, too insecure, too quick to see threats where none existed. I said I finally understood that Vanessa was family to him. Ethan believed me because I was giving him the answer he had wanted for years. The first time Vanessa sat on his lap after our reunion, I smiled. The first time she took the drink from his hand and finished it, I ordered another bottle. When she kissed his cheek in front of me, I offered to take a picture of them. The calmer I became, the more uneasy Ethan looked. And the more triumphant Vanessa became. She mistook my silence for surrender. The night in the hotel was the first time they crossed the final line after Ethan and I reconciled. Someone anonymously sent me the suite number. I was almost certain it was Vanessa. She wanted me to burst through the door screaming. She wanted me to claw at her hair and smash bottles so everyone could point at me again and say that I was the real problem. Instead, I asked for a $1.8 million necklace. Ethan insisted on driving me home from the hotel. He kept glancing at me from behind the wheel. "Claire. You really have changed." I was scrolling through a listing for a penthouse overlooking Boston Harbor and did not look up. "Isn't that what you wanted?" That's not what I meant. Then what did you mean? He had no answer. His phone rang. Vanessa's name appeared on the screen, and he answered almost immediately. Where are you? She demanded loudly enough for me to hear. I slipped getting out of the shower. My ankle won't move. Call a doctor. I called you because I want you to come here. I'm taking Claire home. There was a 2-second silence. Forget it, Vanessa said coldly. I'll crawl to the hospital myself. Ethan tightened both hands on the steering wheel. The old me would have grabbed his arm and begged him not to go. I smiled instead. You should check on her. He turned toward me. It's your birthday. I can call a car. Vanessa exaggerates. She might also be genuinely injured. He watched me for a long moment. I'll take you home first. I nearly laughed. I did not know what Vanessa said next, but 20 seconds later Ethan pulled to the curb. She says it's already swelling. That sounds serious. I'll come back tonight and have dinner with you. Okay. He never came back. At 10 that night, Vanessa posted a photograph. She was sitting on Ethan's kitchen counter with her supposedly injured foot resting on his thigh. The first sapphire necklace, the one he had originally promised me, hung around her neck. The caption read, "The idiot finally remembered who the most important girl in his life is." I took a screenshot and sent it to Rachel. Her reply came almost immediately. The invoice and gift registration are in your name. Wearing it does not make it hers. I turned off my phone and slept well. The following evening, Ethan called and told me Vanessa had arranged a birthday party for me at a private club. When I arrived, they were playing Truth or Dare. Vanessa sat in the center of the group as if she were the guest of honor. Claire, come sit down, she called. You're so understanding now. You can take a joke, right? She pulled a card. Whoever draws the ace has to kiss me for 10 seconds. Someone turned over the cards. Ethan had the ace. The room went quiet. Every face turned toward me. Vanessa made an exaggerated show of discomfort. Well, this is awkward. It isn't awkward, I said. I sat beside Ethan and opened the camera on my phone. Go ahead. His expression darkened. You want me to kiss her? It's only a game. Vanessa wrapped her arms around his neck. Your girlfriend said yes. Don't embarrass me. She kissed him. 10 seconds passed. Then 15. Then 20. Their friends began to cheer. I kept filming. In the middle of the kiss, Ethan opened his eyes and looked at me. I gave him a thumbs up. He shoved Vanessa away so abruptly that she almost fell off the sofa. Then he grabbed my wrist and pulled me into the hallway. What is wrong with you? I looked down at his hand around my wrist. I'm fine. Then why didn't you stop us? I thought you and Vanessa were like brothers. His face stiffened. You always told me that a secure woman wouldn't get upset over little things like this, I continued. This wasn't a little thing. Then why did you do it? That isn't the point. What is the point? Your attitude. What attitude do you want? I tilted my head. Should I run back inside and pull her hair? Slap her? Break a bottle and force you to choose? His answer came automatically. You are never going to hurt her again. I looked at him in silence. That sentence contained the rule that had governed our entire relationship. Vanessa could touch him, kiss him, take his time, sleep in his bed, and claim every part of his life. But the moment I objected, I became cruel. Ethan seemed to hear his own words a second too late. The anger drained from his face. Claire, I didn't mean. Vanessa came out of the room and smacked the back of his head. Why are you fighting with her again? She looped both hands around his arm. Claire finally stopped acting crazy, and now you're upset because she's too reasonable? She smiled at me. Come back and cut the cake. I nodded. Of course. That night, gifts from Ethan's friends totaled more than $80,000. They congratulated me on finally becoming normal. One of them told me I could be invited to future gatherings now that I no longer ruined everyone's mood. I smiled and thanked each of them. Rachel recorded every gift on a formal list. Vanessa drank more as the night went on. Eventually, she dropped into the seat beside me and stroked the sapphire at her throat. The $1.8 million antique necklace from the hotel had already been transferred by an insurance broker into a secured vault under my name. The necklace Vanessa wore was the cheaper birthday piece Ethan had promised before the affair. Do you like it? She asked. It's beautiful. Ethan says it suits me better. Does he? She leaned closer. He also said spending your birthday with you was exhausting. He wasn't tired at all when he was with me in the hotel. Then she began describing what they had done. Ethan slammed his phone onto the table. That's enough. Vanessa rolled her eyes. What can I say? Claire doesn't care. As she spoke, a strand of her hair caught in the necklace clasp. I lifted my hand to free it. Before I could touch her, Ethan lunged forward, seized my wrist, and shoved me away. My hip struck the edge of the table. My forehead hit a marble display behind me. For a moment, the room blurred. Warm blood ran down my temple. The entire club went silent. Ethan stared at me, his face turning white. Vanessa touched the necklace. What the hell is wrong with you, Ethan? She was only trying to move my hair. I wiped the blood with the back of my hand. I wasn't trying to hurt her. Vanessa handed me a napkin. Her expression was full of concern. But I saw the flash of satisfaction in her eyes. Ethan stepped toward me. Claire, I'm going to the hospital. I'll take you. We had barely reached the door when someone shouted that Vanessa had fainted. Ethan stopped. She lay motionless on the sofa, her timing perfect. He looked from her to me, still bleeding through the napkin pressed to my forehead. Stay with her, I said. No. You're hurt. She may be worse. Guilt covered his face. I'll have my driver take you. That's fine. He caught my hand. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have pushed you. It was an accident. I'll make it up to you. You don't have to. I want to. His voice became almost desperate. Whatever you want. Send me a list and I'll get it. At the hospital, Rachel preserved the medical records, photographs, and names of every witness in the room. The next morning, she sent a formal settlement notice to Ethan's personal attorney. If I filed a police report and a civil claim, the incident would enter the due diligence process and risk disclosures for Mercer Meridian's planned IPO. Ethan did not want the board to learn that he had shoved the company's true co-founder into a marble fixture because he thought she was threatening Vanessa. After 3 days of negotiation, we signed a confidential personal settlement. It addressed the bodily injury and certain unresolved personal property matters. It specifically preserved all my claims to the core technology and founder equity. I received the Harbor Penthouse, a collection of modern art, antique jewelry, 2 investment accounts, and part of Ethan's interest in several private funds. The total value exceeded $12 million. Ethan had independent counsel. He completed financial disclosures. He signed every transfer voluntarily. Rachel made sure each asset was properly registered and marked as an irrevocable transfer. When the final document was executed, she called me. He didn't ask to reduce the amount. Because guilt isn't the only reason he agreed. I looked at my reflection in the hospital window. He's more afraid of this appearing in the IPO filings. He should be. Several days later, I stood at the windows of the penthouse and watched light move across Boston Harbor. For years, I had wanted Ethan to understand how badly he hurt me. I had wanted one perfect apology, as if the right words might repair everything. Eventually, I understood that some injuries could not be repaired. They could only be settled. Ethan personally delivered the jewelry to the penthouse. After carrying in the last case, he stood near the windows and watched me. Are you happy? Very. That's it. I looked up. What else should there be? He was quiet for a moment. You don't argue anymore. You used to hate it when I argued. You don't ask where I've been. You used to say I was monitoring you. When Vanessa calls, you act like you don't care. You told me I should trust you. He turned fully toward me. I wanted you to trust me. I didn't want you to stop caring about me. I smiled. I care. The lie sounded effortless. His phone rang again. Vanessa. For the first time, he looked at the screen without answering. When it rang a second time, I picked it up and placed it in his hand. Take it. He watched me before pressing the button. Are you dead? Vanessa snapped. I've called 5 times. What happened? I hurt my back at the gym. I can't move. Call a physical therapist. I don't want some strange man touching me. You always used to massage it. I'm with Claire. Silence. Then Vanessa laughed coldly. So that's how it is now. Fine. I'll find another man who actually wants to take care of me. Ethan's expression changed. Who? None of your business. I'm coming. After he ended the call, I lifted his coat for him. He did not take it immediately. You don't mind. She's hurt. I'll be back in half an hour. He returned the following afternoon. Vanessa had already posted a photograph from the hospital. Ethan was asleep with his head beside her bed, clearly having spent the night. Some people always come when you need them, the caption said. Knowing who matters most is enough. Ethan sat on the edge of my bed. Claire, I'm sorry. It's fine. No, it isn't. I was wrong. She needed you. She always exaggerates. Then why did you stay all night? He had no answer. After a long silence, he took my hand. Marry me. I looked at him. Next month, he said. He seemed surprised when I did not immediately refuse. You would. I'll consider it. What do you need? Security. He frowned. I'll give you anything. Then put everything from the past in writing. The next day, Rachel did not send Ethan one ordinary prenuptial agreement. She sent 3 separate sets of documents into negotiation. The first was a standard premarital property agreement. It confirmed each party's separate assets, liabilities, and completed personal transfers. It did not touch Mercer Capital or anything owned by Richard Mercer. The second was a founder settlement agreement. It confirmed that the core technology had always belonged to the Bennett Family Trust. It acknowledged that my original $8 million had been convertible founder financing that was never properly converted. To settle those claims, Ethan would transfer to me 18% of the company's voting power from his personally held Class B shares. The third document was an irrevocable voting trust and conditional escrow agreement. Mercer Meridian had a dual-class share structure. Ethan personally controlled 61% of the Class B voting power. Richard controlled 12%. Early investors, employees, and other shareholders collectively controlled the remaining 27%. After transferring 18% to settle my founder claim, Ethan would retain 43%. 36% of that would be placed into third-party conditional escrow. The final 7% would remain in his own name. Vanessa's name did not appear anywhere. The provisions were written in neutral language. If either party voluntarily abandoned the marriage before the ceremony began, or if an undisclosed intimate relationship or material breach of trust emerged after execution, the escrow agent could freeze the shares and, after review, release the voting rights. If all 36% was released, the 18% already assigned to my founder trust would bring my total voting control to 54%. The existing shareholder agreement was amended in advance to recognize the Bennett Founder Trust as a permitted transferee. That prevented the company from later rejecting the transfer on technical grounds. Both sides were required to make full financial disclosure. Ethan had his own attorney. Rachel and an outside firm represented me. The negotiations lasted 21 days. Ethan's attorney pushed to narrow the triggering events. Richard demanded that Ethan abandon the voting trust entirely. At the same time, the IPO underwriters had confirmed that Mercer Meridian never received a permanent assignment of the platform it depended on. Without my renewed consent, the offering would be suspended. Ethan believed we were about to marry. He assumed a permanent technology license would become effective after the wedding. He was also completely certain he would never trigger an abandonment clause. So he signed. The board and existing shareholders approved the Bennett Founder Trust as a permitted transferee. Ethan brought the executed documents to my penthouse himself. You really think I would leave our wedding for someone else? You left on my birthday. That was different. You shoved me hard enough to split my forehead open, and you still stayed with her. She fainted. You spent the night at the hospital. She said she was in pain. I closed the folder. There is always a reason. Ethan crouched in front of me. The wedding will happen. And after the wedding? I'll keep my distance from her. You've said that before. This time I mean it. He took a ring from his pocket. A 10-carat emerald-cut diamond. It was almost identical to a ring I had saved online years earlier. Marry me, Claire. He looked sincere. That was the most tragic thing about Ethan. When he said he loved me, he truly believed it. When he promised to stay, he intended to stay. And every time Vanessa called, he convinced himself he was only leaving for a moment. He always believed he would come back. But his love had never been strong enough to make him refuse her. I held out my hand. Yes. Ethan planned the wedding on a scale that made society magazines compete for access. He flew to Paris to commission my dress. He rented an oceanfront estate in Maine. He replaced the flowers in the winter gardens with thousands of white roses because I had once said they were my favorite. The pastry chef was someone whose work I had followed online years earlier. Ethan found every wedding photograph I had ever saved and asked his team to recreate the details one by one. When an assistant handed me the finalized schedule of the founder trust and escrowed assets, she sounded almost breathless. Mr. Mercer has been extremely generous. I turned the last page. Yes. He said he wanted you to feel secure. I smiled. I do. The harbor penthouse. 2 vacation properties. The art. The investment accounts. 18% of Mercer Meridian's voting power. 36% more already deposited in conditional escrow. Every document had been signed and pre-registered. 2 weeks before the wedding, Vanessa appeared at my apartment without warning. She was no longer pretending to be friendly. You think you won? I didn't know we were competing. We have been from the beginning. She walked slowly around the living room, studying the paintings Ethan had transferred to me. Her gaze paused for 1 second on a folder stamped Bennett Founder Trust. Then she looked away. You really have changed. Everyone says that. You used to lose your mind if I touched him. I used to care about many things. She stopped in front of me. Ethan doesn't love you the way you think he does. I know exactly how he loves me. He will always choose me. Then what are you worried about? My calm began to disturb her. I could call him right now and say I need him. No matter what he is doing, he would come. Maybe. Even on your wedding day. I met her eyes. We stood in silence for several seconds. Finally, I smiled. That would be his choice, not mine. The morning of the wedding was bright and bitterly cold. Beyond the estate, the Atlantic flashed silver under the winter sun. A stylist adjusted my veil while Rachel stood near the window holding a leather folder. You can still cancel, she said. The founder settlement is complete. Ownership of the technology has been confirmed. You don't need to prove anything to anyone. I know. Then why walk into the chapel? I looked at myself in the mirror. I'm not waiting for him to fail. If Ethan appeared as promised, the permanent technology license would take effect after our marriage and the company could continue toward its IPO. If he voluntarily abandoned the ceremony, the escrow agent would handle the voting rights under the documents he signed. Either way, I would never again lose my technology, my name, or my future. I used to want him to give me an answer, I said. Rachel watched me. And today? Today, I won't answer for him. At 11:20, Ethan burst into the bridal suite. His face was colorless. His tie hung crooked, and his phone shook in his hand. I turned from the mirror. What happened? Vanessa. Of course. She's been kidnapped. Rachel straightened immediately. Did you call the police? He shook his head and handed us the phone. On the screen, Vanessa was tied to a chair. A masked man stood behind her. He demanded that Ethan transfer $9.5 million in stablecoin to a specified wallet, then bring $500,000 in cash from a Mercer family office safe. The video ended with a warning: no police and no tracking devices. Ethan had invested in digital assets for years. He had enough money in a personal cold wallet to make the transfer. The terror in his eyes was real. The ceremony starts in 40 minutes, I said. I know. What are you going to do? His eyes reddened. I have to go. Rachel took a sharp breath. Let law enforcement handle it. A hostage exchange is not something you do alone. They said they would kill her if I called. Ethan came toward me. Claire, I'm sorry. Once I bring her back, we can continue the wedding. Go, I said. He stared at me. You understand? She may be in danger. He pulled me into his arms. I'll come back. I swear. Then, in front of us, he messaged the wedding director and ordered the ceremony paused and all guest entry suspended until further notice. Over his shoulder, I looked at Rachel. She did not stop him for me. From that moment, The choice belonged entirely to Ethan. The escrow clause did not require anyone to decide whom he loved. It required only the time of departure, the estate's entry records, and the written cancellation instruction he had sent himself. He kissed my forehead and ran. 10 minutes later, Rachel issued preservation notices to the escrow agent, company counsel, and the board. The wedding was formally suspended. The 36% of voting power in conditional escrow entered an interim freeze. I removed the wedding dress and prepared to leave through a private service exit. A temporary security supervisor wearing an estate credential told me the main entrance had been blocked by guest vehicles and reporters. He said a replacement driver was waiting at the rear service lane. Rachel frowned and started to follow me, but company counsel called at that exact moment and demanded immediate confirmation of the escrow notice. The car is only a few yards away, I told her. I stepped through the service door. The driver who should have been waiting was gone. A black cargo van with no wedding markings sat beside the wall. I turned to go back inside. Someone came up behind me and pressed something over my mouth and nose. The world went dark. When I woke, my hands were tied behind a chair. The room smelled of dust, rust, and motor oil. Vanessa sat several yards away, tied to another chair. 2 masked men stood near the door. A third held a knife. My head throbbed. I looked down at the diamond bracelet around my wrist. After Vanessa's visit to my apartment, Rachel had insisted that a security firm make it for me. A locator and emergency transmitter were hidden inside the setting. It had no camera and no audio recorder. It did only one thing, continuously send my location to Rachel and the security center. At the time, I thought she was being overly cautious about a possible wedding disruption. I had never imagined Vanessa would arrange an actual kidnapping. Vanessa looked at me. For once, she was not smiling. One of the men checked his phone. He's here. More than 3 hours after leaving the estate, Ethan entered the warehouse. He carried a black travel bag in one hand and a silver hardware wallet in the other. His eyes moved between Vanessa and me. Let them go. The man with the knife laughed. The $9.5 million in stablecoin cleared? You confirmed it on chain. And the $500,000 in cash? Ethan threw the travel bag onto the floor. It's all there. The man opened the bag, looked inside, and raised his head. 10 million buys one woman. Ethan's face changed. What are you talking about? You choose. The knife touched Vanessa's throat, then pointed toward me. Your girl best friend, or the bride you were supposed to marry today. You have the money. Release both of them. That isn't the deal. Vanessa began to cry. This time, her fear sounded real. Ethan. He looked at her. She pressed one hand against her abdomen. I'm pregnant. The warehouse fell silent. Ethan stared at her. What? The doctor said 8 weeks, she whispered. It's yours. The hotel night had been 6 weeks earlier. Since obstetric dating usually begins from the first day of the last menstrual period, the timeline sounded possible on the surface. She had clearly calculated exactly what number to give him. I did not know whether she had a real medical report. Ethan did not ask to see one. In fear and chaos, he heard only one word. Baby. Vanessa doubled over. My stomach hurts. Ethan took a step toward her. The man lifted the knife. Choose. Ethan looked at me. For months, I had played the woman who no longer argued, demanded, or competed. For the first time, I let myself become the Claire I had been 3 years earlier. Ethan. My voice shook. He moved one step toward me. Claire. Don't leave me here. Tears ran down my face. Some of them were real. Not because I still wanted him, but because somewhere inside me, one small question had survived everything. Would there ever be a crisis serious enough to make him stop? Was there any line he would not cross for Vanessa? I'm your fiancé, I said. We were supposed to be married today. Vanessa cried out again. The baby. Ethan closed his eyes. When he opened them, he looked broken. I choose Vanessa. His voice was quiet. It still destroyed the last fragment of hope I had never admitted remained. The man took the money. Ethan rushed forward and untied Vanessa. I struggled against the ropes. Ethan. He lifted her into his arms. I'll come back. Don't leave me here. I have to get her to a hospital. You chose her again. She's carrying my child. I'm tied to a chair with a knife at my throat. I'll bring more money. I'll come back for you. You always say you'll come back. Pain twisted across his face. Claire, please. I looked at him. How will you compensate me this time? He froze. What? Every time you choose her, you give me money afterward. What is my life worth? Anything you want. Your company? Vanessa went rigid in his arms. I held Ethan's gaze. Mercer Meridian too? Yes. His voice cracked. Take it. Take my shares, my houses, my accounts. Take everything. I don't care. Just stay alive until I come back. A camera near the ceiling glowed with a faint red light. It was not mine. Vanessa had wanted the entire moment recorded as proof of her final victory. Hours later, police seized that camera and the warehouse computer under warrant. Legally, I did not need Ethan's spoken promise. The written agreements already controlled the shares. But eventually, he would hear his own words again in the evidence file. Vanessa buried her face against his chest. As Ethan turned toward the door, she looked back at me. Her tears disappeared. Her mouth curved into the same smile she had worn in the hotel suite. She believed she had won. Ethan carried her out without looking back. The moment the door closed, I stopped crying. The man with the knife stared at me. That was a fast change. There is nothing left to perform. Sirens sounded in the distance. The men turned toward the door. The bracelet had continued transmitting my location. When my route left the estate and remained stationary in an industrial district for more than 10 minutes, Rachel called the police and provided the live coordinates. Officers entered through the front. The security team Rachel had hired sealed the rear access under police direction. The kidnappers tried to escape through a service door and ran directly into the waiting officers. When the police cut the ropes from my wrists, I looked at the door through which Ethan had carried Vanessa. For 3 years, I had wanted him to choose me once. In the end, he gave me something more valuable than a choice. An answer he could never explain away. Vanessa never reached the hospital. Ethan had left the warehouse less than 2 minutes before the first police vehicle entered the industrial park. State police intercepted his car 2 miles away at the only ramp leading to the highway. The investigation reconstructed the plan quickly. Vanessa had contacted 2 men with criminal records through a former Mercer Meridian employee. She bribed the temporary security supervisor assigned to the wedding and used him to redirect me to the service exit. Her original plan had been a convincing fake kidnapping, just enough to force Ethan to leave before the ceremony. During her visit to my apartment, she had photographed one page summarizing the escrow triggers while I answered a phone call. She knew that if Ethan voluntarily abandoned the wedding before it began, his voting rights could be frozen. But Vanessa also owed more than $1.3 million in studio loans and consumer debt. When the 2 men learned that Ethan truly had access to 8 figures in digital assets, the fake kidnapping turned into real extortion. Vanessa did not withdraw. Instead, she told them to take me too. She wanted Ethan to choose between us in person, and she wanted the choice recorded. She wanted proof that even if it cost him his company, she would always matter more. She got her proof. Vanessa was also genuinely pregnant. An ultrasound showed that she was approximately 12 weeks along, while the hotel night with Ethan had occurred only 6 weeks earlier. Police later recovered months of messages and hotel records between Vanessa and a married trainer from her private gym. A prenatal paternity test several weeks later formally confirmed that he was the father. At the police station, Ethan first learned only that the pregnancy timeline did not match. By then, the escrowed voting rights were still frozen pending review, but he had already lost immediate control of the company. I spent one night in the hospital. At 8 the next morning, Rachel entered my room with coffee and a tablet. The first stage is complete. The escrow agent had reviewed the estate access records, Ethan's written cancellation instruction, and the messages he sent before leaving. There was sufficient preliminary evidence of voluntary abandonment. The 36% in escrow was frozen. The 18% I had already received under the founder settlement remained mine. If no contrary evidence emerged during the 3-day review, The escrowed voting rights would be released, and the Bennett Founder Trust would control 54% of Mercer Meridian's voting power. The permanent technology license had not taken effect because the marriage never occurred. The company remained dependent on the old license, which was already under breach review. The penthouse, investment accounts, and other property had been transferred long before the engagement and could not be clawed back merely because the wedding failed. Ethan's voting control had been temporarily suspended at midnight. What about the board? I asked. Emergency meeting at noon. They can suspend him as chief executive and form a special committee. Formal removal will take longer. How long? A week if they move quickly and follow procedure. And Ethan? He called 37 times. I looked at my phone. 37 missed calls. I powered it off. At noon, I entered Mercer Meridian's boardroom in a white suit, with a bandage still covering the cut at my temple. Richard Mercer sat at the head of the table. He looked 10 years older than he had the day before. The other directors avoided my eyes. Rachel and a partner from the outside firm placed the founder settlement, voting trust, escrow agreement, medical records, and preliminary police report on the table. Richard opened the founder settlement first, then the voting trust, then the conditional escrow agreement. Finally, he looked at me. You planned all of this. I made sure that no matter what choice Ethan made, I would never again be left with nothing. You manipulated my son into signing an agreement no reasonable person would accept. He had independent counsel, full financial disclosure, and 21 days to review every provision. He signed because he loved you. I held Richard's gaze. When I gave him $8 million and the core technology, I did it because I loved him. No one spoke. I was removed from the company without compensation, I continued. My research was packaged as Ethan's vision. The confidentiality agreement prevented me from working in the same industry. These documents did not give me property that belonged to someone else. They confirmed ownership of the technology, settled my founder financing, and governed shares Ethan voluntarily placed in escrow. Richard closed the folder. What do you want? Ethan suspended as chief executive immediately. One director shifted in his chair. Even without the equity dispute, the kidnapping scandal and undisclosed relationship justify an independent investigation. I looked around the table. Vanessa has influenced Ethan's business judgment for years. He repeatedly abandoned company responsibilities because of her. Now the proposed IPO may face serious disclosure issues. He cannot remain in operational control while the board investigates. Richard looked at his son's empty chair. After a long silence, he nodded. The emergency vote was brief. Under the company's temporary vacancy procedures, I was added to the board. Ethan Mercer was suspended, and all of his operating authority was frozen. I was appointed interim executive chair pending the special committee's investigation. The meeting had not ended when the door opened. Ethan stood there with 2 security officers behind him. He had not slept. His suit was wrinkled, and his eyes were bloodshot. When he saw me, he stopped. Claire. Richard rose. You should not be here. Ethan ignored him and walked toward me. You're alive. Yes. I went back for you. After you learned Vanessa had lied. No. I was going back before I knew the baby wasn't mine. The police were already at the warehouse. He stopped several feet away. I thought you were going to die. So did I. His eyes dropped to the documents spread across the table. What is this? The agreements you signed. The color drained from his face. Claire. You voluntarily left before the ceremony and issued a written instruction canceling it. The abandonment review has begun, and the escrowed voting rights are frozen. You cannot be serious. You placed those shares into trust and conditional escrow after independent legal review. I signed because I trusted you. I gave you everything my mother left me because I trusted you. That was different. I smiled. Everything is always different when it happens to you. He looked around the boardroom. You're taking the company from me. I'm taking back the company I built. Mercer Meridian is mine. With my money, my technology, my research. I sacrificed for it too. Yes, you became its face. His voice began to shake. You used me. No, I stood. I simply stopped absorbing the consequences of every choice you made. He stepped closer. You knew what Vanessa would do? I knew she was becoming more unstable. I did not know she would have me kidnapped. You watched me leave the wedding. How could I have stopped you? You could have begged me to stay. I looked at him. Ethan, I begged you for 3 years. He had no answer. I picked up my folder. He reached for my arm. Claire, I made the wrong choice. You did not make one wrong choice. You made the same choice you have always made. I thought she was pregnant with my child. You slept with her while you were in a relationship with me. It happened once. Once was enough for you to believe her baby could be yours. I was terrified. So was I. I went back. You always planned to come back. My voice remained calm. That is the problem. You believed that whenever Vanessa called you away, I would remain exactly where you left me. He shook his head. I love you. I know. The words hurt him more than anger would have. You loved me when I admired you, I said. You loved me when I worked for you. You loved me when I lost my mind over you and Vanessa. Then I became quiet and stopped embarrassing you, and you loved me even more. But every time loving me required you to refuse her, you chose her. His eyes filled with tears. I will never see her again. She may be going to prison. That should be easy. I'll fix everything. There is nothing left to fix. He looked at the engagement ring on my hand. I removed it slowly. For one moment, I remembered Ethan at 23, eating cold takeout with me at 3 in the morning, watching me write code, promising that we would build a future together. Perhaps that version of him had once been real. But he had been gone for too long. I placed the ring on the table. You always wanted a girlfriend who would never be jealous of Vanessa, I said. Now you finally have one. He stared at me. What does that mean? It means I will never ask where you went. I will never care if you spend the night with her. I will never become angry when you kiss her, choose her, or destroy your life trying to save her. Claire. I walked toward the door. Because I don't care anymore. 3 days later, the escrow agent and company counsel completed the voting rights registration. The 18% I already held, combined with the 36% released from conditional escrow, gave the Bennett founder trust 54% of Mercer Meridian's voting power. 1 week later, the special committee completed its independent investigation. Ethan was formally removed as chief executive, and I was appointed executive chair. 3 months later, Vanessa pleaded guilty to conspiracy, extortion, kidnapping, and obstruction-related charges. The prenatal paternity test confirmed that the married trainer from her private gym was the father of her child. He did not leave his wife, and he refused to pay any of Vanessa's legal expenses. Ethan sold part of his remaining personal assets to cover criminal and corporate counsel, board-related claims, and settlements arising from failures in the company's IPO disclosures. Richard barred him from Mercer Capital. The official statement said Ethan was taking an extended leave. Everyone understood that the Mercer family had abandoned him. Mercer Meridian did not collapse. 6 months later, we restarted the public offering process and opened a new research center. It was named after my mother. For the first time, the name on the company headquarters changed. Bennett Meridian Technologies. Ethan wrote me many letters. I returned every one unopened. Twice, he waited outside my office building. Security escorted him away both times. On the first anniversary of the canceled wedding, I stood on the top floor of the new research center and looked out across Boston Harbor. Rachel came over with 2 glasses of champagne. Do you ever think about him? I considered the question. I miss the person I once believed he would become. That isn't the same thing. No, I said. It isn't. Below us, employees crossed the plaza carrying laptops and coffee. The company was alive. It was no longer Ethan's. It was no longer the Mercer family's. It was mine. Rachel lifted her glass. To finally getting everything back. I touched my glass to hers. I did not take Ethan's life away from him. I took my technology, my money, my name, and my future out of his hands. Everything else he lost had never belonged to me. It was simply the price of every choice he made. For years, Ethan had believed that no matter how many times he ran to Vanessa, I would still be standing in the same place when he turned around. For years, he was right. He was wrong only once. Once was enough.